Hi guys, so it's the early part of June. You planted out your garden and you're ready for a great harvest. Now what do? Besides a little weeding, a little fertilizing, a little watering, you plan to keep on planting. When I first started gardening, I thought you planted it once, that was it. You got what you got and you were stuck. If it didn't work, too bad, so sad. If it did work, yay! But there's actually a little bit of insurance that you can take out, especially in June. It's the perfect month to do that. In this video, we're going to talk about how you can have a continuous harvest throughout the growing season, as well as make sure that you have plenty of produce to put away for winter. I'd like to welcome you to my backyard Kentucky homestead. My name is Kim, and let's get started. So we're going to talk about succession planting, and that is simply planting smaller batches of the same crop or different crops at staggered intervals throughout the growing season instead of planting everything all at once. This allows you to more efficiently use your beds, as well as keep stuff growing all year long, all summer long. Also allows you to avoid a overwhelming harvest if you're not wanting to do a lot of preservation and you're just wanting to have fresh eating veggies. You could actually do a smaller number of plants throughout the season and then have a smaller harvest all at once. Where if you're wanting to do a larger preservation, you could do a larger number of plants, but do that multiple times. And then you have successive opportunities to preserve all of that harvest. It's really, really awesome. It helps you maximize your space. I have potatoes, onions, and garlic that are going to be coming out of the garden in the next few weeks. And that is going to open up a whole lot of space that I can plant more squash, and pumpkins, and beans, and flowers, and just all kinds of crazy things, which we're going to talk about here right now. Another benefit of succession planting is that if one crop fails because of drought or a storm comes through and blows everything away, which we've seen way too many of those this year, holy cow. Or if you have, in the very early part of June, I just saw cucumber beetles for the first time yesterday. So you have cucumber beetles and squash vine borer, squash bugs. They will become less invasive later in the summer, but in the early part of June into July, they're very, very active. So if you can have some crops that they might target planted a little bit later, you may have more likelihood of actually getting a harvest. If you have a problem like I do with zucchini and cucumbers and melons and squash and pumpkins and oh my, it's a lot. So I'm taking a couple of other measures to cover mine. I'm going to be doing hand pollinating for some of them. Some of them are parking a carpet, which is awesome. But I still want to have staggered crops throughout the summer, especially because some things like cucumbers and zucchini, they get diseased. Even if the bugs don't get to them, they get diseased very easily. This can also help extend your season. Now, the two factors that you need to consider, and the most important is going to be your first frost date. Now, mine is usually mid to late October, sometimes later, sometimes earlier. Don't make the mistake of pulling your crops too early. The call for a frost in early October last year, I pulled the tomatoes, I pulled the peppers. We didn't get the frost, and then we got another 30 days of really good growing weather, so I was so sad. So this year, they call for a frost early. I'm going to go ahead and cover it and just wait and see. But you need to know generally when your first frost is going to be. Again, mine is the latter part of October. So that means from June 1st until October 20th, I have almost like 140 plus days of growing season. Within that, you need to consider also that as you move towards September and October, you have less light. You also have cooler temperatures, so the plants are going to grow a little slower, which means they're going to mature a little more slowly. So you want to add a little bit of time to those later succession crops because they're going to take a little bit longer than the packet may say. So like this one says 50 days. If I plant this in August, it may take it 60 to 70 days. So you just need to consider that. But June is ideal for succession planting because we have really warm temperatures. We have plenty of rain. You do want to have really good draining soil like any normal crops. Also, when you're succession planting in between those crops, you're going to want to make sure that you're amending that bed. So adding compost, adding more fertilizer, and then fertilizing continuously throughout. I use liquid fertilizer every week or two, and then I use the Hollytone organic granular fertilizer once a month or so. It gives a lot of good backup, really good initial nutrients, really quick uptake, but also really good backup for a longer period of time. But anyway, as I was saying, it can really extend your harvest season, so you really want to make sure to do that. Because there's no reason to stop in August when everything gets sick and dies, when you could keep planting through, the fall, early fall, if you're in a warmer climate. We have a really long season here. We go from usually mid-April until mid to late October. So we have a really long time, and we still have a really long time from today to plant. We do want to make sure with June, for all of the garden, whether it's being planted now or later, to water very well. But if we're direct seeding right now, we want to make sure to keep those seeds moist, because if they start to sprout, but then they dry up, they will die and they will not grow at all. Once that seed opens up to let the sprout come out, and once it closes because it's dry, that's it. You'll have to reseed if you don't keep that watered. So it can be a little easier for some to start seeds indoors because you have a little bit more control over the environment and how warm it is. Right now we're having a pretty warm week, but we're going to get storms later this week, and it's probably going to get a little cooler. So we've been up and down all season. Lots and lots of rain. So we are going to primarily want to probably direct sow things at this point in June. I will probably start some fall crops, and that'll include some cabbages. I'm not sure about the tomatoes because I have an incredible number of tomatoes growing. I should have plenty. But I will start some cabbages and maybe some carrots later on in the season. But the cabbages I'm going to start inside because it's a lot easier to control that. I'm going to start them now in the early part of June so that I can plant them out in the latter part of July or early August. And then they will be ready to harvest come the cooler season in October. So for June, what we're going to look for are primarily, depending on your area, now check your last frost date, calculate, you can just tell the Android or Google, how many days do I have between now and X days? So say, how many days do I have now between now and October 20th? I have about 140 days. So really, you need to consider how long the crop takes to grow, the maturity date, as well as the seed germination date. You're going to add those two together. And again, as you get into September and October, you're going to probably want to add another 10 days or so. So right now, we're looking at things that are going to be about 100 days or less to grow from seed to maturity. So right now, let's talk about all the amazing things that you can grow. It's more than just green beans. It really is. All right. Well, we are going to start with the green beans. So the first one, and we will be doing multiple succession plantings of these. These green beans are 50, 52, and 50 days. So you're going to get green beans just about every 2 months. So if I plant some of these every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or so, throughout the summer, I will have green beans pretty much all season. It gets super hot, they may slow down, so you may want to skip a week or two if it gets like super, super hot. But green beans are a great one. So we can actually plant these here all the way up until late August. So green beans are a great one to succession sow. And it's also really good too because you can do a few or you can do the whole bed depending on how you're wanting to use it. If you're wanting to have fresh eating, you might just want to do a handful of plants at once or a handful of seeds. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, do another handful of seeds. And then you'll have the continuous harvest. Now also you want to make sure, especially with beans and a few other things, you want to harvest. The plant's goal is to set seed to perpetuate its life cycle. So it gets, feedback from the plant. Hey, I've set seed, I'm done. If you are removing the fruit from the plant, so the beans, the squash, or what have you, before it gets to that stage, it will have to keep creating fruit so it has more. So unless it's sick, it will continue producing fruit until it gets to that point where you get to frost, or you get to the point where it actually has fruit that is fully ripened. Another really good one to do is okra. Now, you may not like okra, but it's really, really good, especially if you have a freeze dryer or a dehydrator. Okra dried is amazing. It's like, if you like fried okra, but you don't like the slimy, dry it. It is absolutely wonderful. This is only a 50 to 60 day maturity and a 7 to 14 day sprouting, the germination. So within 70 days or so, we should have okra once we plant these seeds. So okra is one that's really good to plant every few weeks. We'll have continuous harvest. Okra does not have as many pests, though it is. I did have aphids on mine last year, but it did continue to. It grew to 8 feet tall. Some of the plants, I had to bend them down to pick the okra. So one of the things you do want to do with okra is to harvest it when it's smaller. The longer it gets, the more woody it gets, and it's not edible. So harvest it frequently. It grows very, very fast, very similar to squash, which is our next break. So squash is our next category. So I do have a variety of different types here. I have gray zucchini, a regular green zucchini, dunja, which is a parthenocarpic, Emerald Delight, and just one from Menards. So Dollar Tree, Walmart, doesn't matter. 50 to 55 day maturity. It will have 10 days to germination. So within 60 days, so 2 months time, you should have squash. So we could again plant these into the middle of August. So if I plant these every few weeks, I should be able to get some squash hopefully this year. Really trying. Got some covered. It's doing good so far. The squash is a really great one to continue. Now, if you're not in an area that is really humid and your squash doesn't die back, you may be good with one plant all season. But if you're in the south, especially where it's very humid, you have a lot of pest pressure, you're going to want to plant this multiple times per season, every 2 to 3 weeks. So another one to choose for succession planting is cucumbers. Cucumbers are just disease prone. They are going to come on quickly, they're going to fruit, they're going to die, and you want to have successions behind that. So every couple of weeks, plant a couple of seeds, and then you can have more cucumbers throughout the season. You may need to, again, when it gets super hot, they may stop setting fruit. So you may want to take a little bit of a break in July, but a great one to continue to sow throughout the season. Bunching onions are also good. This is a minimum of 60 day. This could be up to 100 day. But these are the ones, they're not daylight dependent, day length dependent. So you can actually plant these in the harvest season. You can grow these inside as well. 5 to 10 day germination, and then you have green onions at your house without having to go to the store and get some that are going to die within a day or two. So this is really good. Celery is a really good thing too. That takes longer, but it's also another one to grow at home because you can go out, take a couple stalks off, the plant keeps continuing to grow, and you're not losing an entire bunch of celery because it just goes bad once it's harvested. The next category is going to be herbs. So we have bouquet dill here, 45 to 55 day maturity, 6 to 14 day germination, and the monarch or the swallowtail butterflies absolutely love dill. If you let it go to seed, it will also self-sow itself. Next year, we've got Ducat good dill, 60 to 70 day maturity, 7 to 14 day germination. So this would take about 80 days. Basil is pretty quick. Black sesame, I have not planted this one yet, but I'm going to do that today. It is 100 day maturity, 10 to 14 days. So I'm on the cusp of not having this one come to harvest. But I grew this 2 years ago, and it was amazing to have black sesame. You have to get the pods before they open up because they will, and they will drop the sesame seeds all over the ground. Coriander or cilantro is another great one to succession sow. It has a very high tendency to bolt in the warmer temperatures. So growing it in the shade can help extend that season, but also trying to grow it multiple times throughout the season can also help. It is a very fast grower, 40 to 45 days. Also one that you could really plant in the fall and have a really good harvest then. So I do have some drying beans in the garden now, but my plan is for some of them to go ahead and harvest them. I'm thinking that I can harvest the plant and let them dry off the, not off the vine, but I can harvest the entire plant, hang it upside down, let those beans dry on the plant still, but have that plant out of the garden, and then I can replace it with more beans. Painted pony bush bean, 60 day maturity, 8 to 10 day germination. Really good bean. Adzuki bush bean, 60 to 75 day maturity, 8 to 10 day germination. And the lima beans, 65 day maturity. Now, these maturity dates, I'm sure, are going to be when you would pick fresh. So drying them again. I'm going to try this year to cut the plants off and just dry it off out of the garden, hang it upside down and let them dry on the vine. Another great category to grow in June are going to be your melons, your watermelon, your cantaloupe. These have, let's see, Hale's Best Jumbo, 80 to 85 day maturity, 7 to 14 day germination. Cal Sweet Watermelon, 85 day maturity, 7 to 10 day germination. So we are very much well within the span of when we can plant these in the next week or two and still get a crop. And I have a couple of watermelon and a bunch of squash and pumpkins I planted in May and late April, but we can get it actually maybe a second harvest so that we have some more melons coming in later in the season. Moon and Stars, 85 day maturity, 7 to 10 day germination. Not sure what to say this one. 75 to 90 days. So if you look at some of the smaller ones, they can actually honey rack. Awesome. 80 day maturity. And then Bush Sugar Baby, 80 day maturity. So there's still plenty of time. If you have not lost your window, if you haven't planted these crops yet, and you have a frost date, first frost date later in October, you still have plenty of time to plant any of this stuff. So I'm also going to be succession sowing some of my squash and pumpkins. Early acorn squash, 75 days to maturity. Plenty of time to have another harvest of it. I do have flowers forming on what I've already planted, so we'll have another round of it. Hunter butternut squash, 85 day maturity, 5 to 10 day germination. So within about 90 to 95 days, which we have plenty of time, you can get more butternut squash. Table Queen's acorn squash, early pie pumpkin. So if you want to have some pie pumpkins for Thanksgiving, 90 day harvest with 7 to 14 day maturity. So you could still actually plant pumpkins and get them for Thanksgiving or Halloween, but get them before Halloween. Sweet dumpling squash, 95 day maturity, 5 to 10 day harvest. Sweet meat squash, 95 day maturity, 5 to 10 days. So this one is pushing it a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and try it anyway. Dutch fork pie pumpkin, 100 day. I may save the seeds on this one. I've got some of this planted. It is a Machado squash, which is one of the things that I'm using this year to try to combat the vine borer. They like the Peppo and Maxima squashes and pumpkins better because it is a hollow vine and a little flatter. This is a harder vine and it's not as hollow. So Dutch fork pie pumpkin, hopefully we'll be able to get some of those this year. Burgess buttercup squash, probably one of my favorites, 85 day maturity, 5 to 10 day germination. Bill's golden pippin squash, 80 to 100 days. I did get several of these last year. They were really, really good. Girardelle pumpkin, 95 to 100, so that's pushing it. It's got a 7 to 14 day germination. Probably could still do this if we have a late frost, late first frost, but it's pushing it. But it's possible. And one of the things with gardening is that you don't try, you definitely won't succeed. So if you experiment, give it a little try, put 1 seed out, 2 seeds out. This has 20 seeds in it. You don't probably need 20 of these in a year. So this seed packet, while it's from 2024, will last me the next 3 or 4 or 5 years easily, even if I plant one out and lose it. So it's worth the experiment. Give it a try. A different type of butternut squash, 90 day maturity, 5 to 10 day germination. Honey nut squash, this one actually surprises me. So it's 110 day. It is a smaller squash. I do have some of these growing. All right, so the camera turned off. I'm not sure where I got, so I'll just do the last couple of days. So Jardel, probably too far. Butternut squash, 90 days, 5 to 10 day germination, and honey nut squash, 110 days. This is probably going to be too long as well. But I do have some of these growing, so super excited about that. So a few other things that you can plant, but you may want to wait a little bit later because they are cooler season crops, would be radishes, lettuce and salad greens, spinach, beets, carrots, bok choy, and then another one to do is tomatoes. Now, determinate tomatoes are ideal for fall planting, but you would probably already need to have starts for that. So you could go like to your big box store right now or your local nursery, maybe pick up a determinate or tomato or two if you're wanting to have a fall harvest. But one thing I did find last year and the year before was that once my determinate tomatoes fruited and I picked those, they started to die back. I cut them off, but left the root and some of the stalk there. It actually resprouted. My micro tomatoes have done that multiple times, to where they just restart regrowing again, and they go through the entire cycle of setting fruit, harvesting, and then they die back, cut it back. So I'm going to try to do that again with my determinant this year. But determinants are a really good one to plant out in July for a harvest come September or October, because they do have like a 60 to 80 day maturity date, but you do need to have determinants for that. Indeterminate are going to keep growing and growing and growing, so they're not going to set as much fruit at once like a determinant would. Something else that I have not done yet, but I do want to do this week, is plant my sweet corn. I have orchard baby corns, like little baby ones. I'm going to try to plant that. I've got some potatoes probably coming out pretty soon in the next week or so. I'm going to get that because it has like a 60-day maturity date. So check your maturity dates. Some corn is 60 days, some is 90 days, so you would need more time for that. But you could actually do a couple of successions of corn, so you don't have the 2 years per plant coming in all at once if you do a row or two. But you could do a small block of corn a couple of times, do a couple of weeks in between. It is wind pollinated, so you do need like a square type shape of that, so you need quite a few plants together, but they only produce like 2 ears of corn at once, usually. So you could do a couple of blocks if you have the space for that, do a couple of blocks every few weeks, and then still have corn coming through in September. So options to choose from. So the last group I want to talk about are flowers. Now, a lot of flowers like Cosmos last year started dying back. I did go ahead and chop it off, but it regrew just like the tomatoes do. Zinnias in my area are very, very, very prone to powdery mildew. So you can plant these every few weeks. 60 to 70 day maturity for the lilliput, which is short, 16 to 18 inches. The exquisite zinnia is 30 to 36 inches. It grows a lot faster, 50 to 55 day maturity. Gorgeous plants. And then we have the California Giant, which is 60 to 75 day. So we still have plenty of time to do actually a couple of succession sowing of the zinnias. Cosmos grow even faster. Whoops, fell down. 40 to 55 or 45 to Cosmos are even faster. This is a 40 to 60 day maturity. This is a 75 to 100. So you do be careful. Make sure you read the back of the seed packets. That one doesn't say. Cosmos is a really good one. Nasturtiums are a great one as well. They have 60 to 90 day maturity, and nasturtiums are absolutely gorgeous, and they do well in the heat. Calendula, I'm going to succession sow, but a little bit later because I do have some growing in the shade right now. But calendula is actually more of a cool season flower. So it'll do really, really good if I plant it in late July, early August for a harvest later in September and October. Because what I want to do with that is make some sap with it. Just dry those flowers, put it in some oil, and then you can make some actual lip balm or sap or different things like that. Marigolds are ideal for planting throughout the summer, 45 to 60 day maturity. They bring a lot of really good beneficials into the garden, and they also take care of some of the bad pests. So you may not be a huge fan of marigolds. I love them. They're really, really good for the garden. I've got some more, so many different types of cosmos. Just surprising how many there are. Another flower I found that I have that I want to plant is African daisy. It is a 50 to 60 day maturity with a 7 to 15 day germination. So I'm going to plant some of these up in a pot. And then there's a wasp. Another one that you might think that you've missed the window on are sunflowers. This sunspot dwarf is 80 to 90 day maturity, 10 day germination. And it is a shorter one. It is only 2 to 3 feet tall. Teddy bear also is 2 feet tall, 70 to 75 day maturity. And even this mammoth Russian, 75 to 90 day maturity. I could plant this now and still have sunflowers before September. So it's awesome. So there are so many things to choose from and so many things that you can still plant in June. There is, for most of us, plenty of time. So you haven't missed your window. You can still get more harvest. You can still stagger your harvest. so that you're not inundated all at once if you're just wanting to grow stuff for fresh eating. Do be sure to amend your bed with compost and fertilizer to make sure that the new plant has plenty of nutrients to grow quickly. Keep it watered and keep the pests away if you can, and then just keep harvesting. So this is an awesome time to be a gardener. I love it. So exciting. All of the possibilities of what could be are just so wonderful. So do let me know below, are you succession sowing? And if you are, what are your favorite things to succession sow? And if you're interested in some of my other gardening content, check out this video. And until the next time, I wish you happy gardening. Have a wonderful day, and bye.